Hello, steadfast Taurus. Some changes never arrive with fanfare. They begin quietly, like the feeling of solid ground becoming just a little more certain beneath your feet. As July 12, 2026 approaches, you may notice that your inner world is moving at a different pace, inviting you to pause long enough to recognize what has been taking shape all along. This isn't simply another horoscope. It's an opportunity to look at your journey through a wider lens and consider that the pieces you've been trying to make sense of may finally be forming a clearer picture. There are seasons when life seems to ask us to wait longer than we'd like, and then there are seasons when those periods of waiting begin to reveal their purpose. Mid-July carries that kind of atmosphere for you. Rather than announcing itself with dramatic certainty, this astrological climate may encourage a deeper awareness of your own values, your direction, and the quiet strength you've been building without fully realizing it. Sometimes the most meaningful shifts don't arrive because the world suddenly changes. They happen because you're finally ready to see yourself differently. From an astrological perspective, this period brings together themes that naturally resonate with your path. Jupiter's movement through Gemini highlights learning, conversations, fresh perspectives, and the unexpected value of meaningful connections. For Taurus, this influence may broaden your understanding of what true security really means, reminding you that growth isn't measured only by what you possess, but also by what you're willing to explore. At the same time, Venus, your ruling planet, encourages you to reconnect with what genuinely nourishes your heart, instead of simply maintaining what has become familiar. If the past few years have included delays, difficult decisions, or moments that left you questioning your direction, consider the possibility that those experiences were strengthening your foundation rather than preventing your progress. Like roots growing beneath the soil long before anyone sees new leaves, much of your real growth has happened where it couldn't be measured from the outside. What once felt like standing still may now begin to reveal itself as careful preparation for the next stage of your life. You may also find yourself returning to dreams or ambitions that quietly slipped into the background. This doesn't necessarily mean repeating the past. More often, it suggests meeting an old desire with new wisdom, greater patience, and a stronger sense of your own worth. A conversation, an unexpected message, or someone re-entering your life around this time could offer fresh perspective rather than simple nostalgia. Instead of asking you to become who you were, these encounters may help you recognize who you become. So let me ask you something, Taurus. What if you no longer had to carry every burden just to prove your strength? What if this season is less about pushing harder and more about trusting the solid ground you've already built beneath your feet? Stay open to what naturally unfolds around July 12, because meaningful opportunities often arrive with quiet confidence rather than loud announcements. If this message reflects something you've already been sensing, I'd love to hear from you. Leave the number 12 in the comments as a simple reminder that you're choosing to trust your own timing and build your next chapter with intention. As we continue, let's explore what the shift may be inviting you to discover within yourself. There are moments in every life when a subtle change begins long before visible results appear. For you, Taurus, this period may mark one of those moments. It's less like a door suddenly swinging open and more like a familiar path becoming clear after morning mist lifts from the landscape. What emerges isn't just another opportunity. It may be a deeper understanding of your own values, your resilience, and the life you've been quietly preparing to create. In astrology, Jupiter's journey through Gemini encourages curiosity, thoughtful communication, and a broader way of seeing the world. For someone with your branded nature, this influence can become an invitation to balance stability with fresh ideas, allowing practical wisdom to meet new possibilities. Rather than asking you to abandon what you've built, this alignment may simply encourage you to build upon it with greater confidence, purpose, and trust in the direction your life is naturally unfolding. For Taurus, an earth sign that naturally values stability, this period may feel less like a sudden breakthrough and more like the quiet realization that the ground beneath you has been changing for some time. Around July 12, 2026, the astrological atmosphere encourages steady expansion rather than dramatic upheaval. Jupiter's movement through Gemini invites you to rethink how you define security, reminding you that lasting abundance often begins with a new perspective before it appears in the material world. At the same time, Venus, your ruling planet, forms a meaningful relationship with Pluto, bringing another layer to this story. While Jupiter broadens your outlook, Pluto gently encourages deeper transformation beneath the surface. Together, these influences may draw your attention to parts of yourself you protected for years, not because they lacked value, but because they once felt too vulnerable to express. Old fears about standing out, asking for more, changing direction, or trusting your own instincts may quietly rise into awareness, not to discourage you, but to be understood and released. This combination doesn't demand that you become someone different overnight. Instead, it invites you to reclaim qualities that have always belonged to you. Taurus is often recognized for patience, loyalty, and resilience. Yet beneath that calm exterior lives a remarkable capacity for quiet courage. These planetary movements suggest a season where your strength no longer needs to come from simply enduring. It can begin to come from choosing what truly reflects your values, even when that choice leads beyond familiar ground. If you felt as though life has been asking you to wait, perhaps that waiting has been serving a purpose. Growth in nature rarely announces itself with noise. The strongest trees spend years deepening their roots before anyone notices how high they've grown. In much the same way, this period may reveal that your past efforts, disappointments, and lessons have been preparing you for opportunities that require not only skill, but also confidence in your own worth. What gives this moment its meaning isn't the rarity of an astrological alignment alone. It's the possibility that your inner readiness and the timing of your life are beginning to meet. Think of a field that's been carefully tended through changing seasons. The harvest doesn't appear because of one perfect day, it arrives because countless unseen moments have prepared the soil. Around mid-July, you may begin to recognize that many experiences you once questioned have quietly been leading you toward a more authentic direction. I've often noticed that the most meaningful turning points rarely arrive through dramatic events. More often, they appear through a conversation that lingers in your mind, an unexpected opportunity that feels strangely familiar, or a realization that suddenly makes years of experience fit together. What we sometimes call luck is often the meeting place between preparation and awareness. The invitation has been present for some time. Now you may simply be more ready to recognize it. Perhaps you've already sensed that something is shifting. A forgotten idea returns with fresh relevance. A goal you once set aside begins to feel possible again. A relationship becomes more honest, or a new perspective changes the way you see an old situation. These moments aren't necessarily signs that everything is changing overnight. They may simply be reminders that your inner compass is becoming clearer, encouraging you to trust your own judgment with greater confidence. As Jupiter continues to encourage fresh understanding and Venus deepens your connection with what truly matters, you may find yourself asking different questions than before. Instead of wondering whether you're capable enough, you may begin asking what kind of life genuinely reflects your values. Instead of seeking certainty from the outside world, you may discover that your greatest clarity grows from within. Allow yourself to spend time with whatever thoughts are naturally emerging. Ask yourself, what part of my life has quietly outgrown its old shape? Which dream still feels meaningful, even after all this time? What belief about myself am I finally ready to release? Sometimes a new chapter doesn't begin with a dramatic decision. Sometimes it begins with seeing familiar ground through wiser eyes and realizing that the path ahead has been waiting patiently for you to notice it. Not every important realization arrives with celebration or unmistakable signs. Some enter gently, like the warmth of morning sunlight reaching a garden after days of rain, or the unexpected comfort of hearing a familiar voice at exactly the right moment. That quiet, steady energy is the atmosphere surrounding this chapter of your journey, inviting you to trust what is growing within before the rest of the world can see it. Taurus, the cards that speak most clearly to this chapter are the Empress, Seven of Pentacles, and Ace of Pentacles. Together, they don't promise instant transformation. Instead, they describe the quiet unfolding of a life that has been maturing beneath the surface for much longer than you may realize. Their message isn't loud or urgent. It arrives with the calm certainty of a new season, inviting you to recognize what has been growing within you all along. The Empress, a card deeply connected with Venus, your ruling planet, speaks first. She reminds you that genuine abundance begins with self-worth, not constant effort. If you've been measuring yourself only by what you've accomplished or what you've managed to hold together, this card gently asks you to remember that your value has never depended on productivity alone. Healing in this season isn't about repairing something broken. It's about allowing yourself to receive the care, creativity, and peace you've often offered so generously to others. Next comes the Seven of Pentacles, a card that understands patience better than almost any other in the deck. It encourages you to look back at your journey with curiosity instead of frustration. The time you once believed was wasted may have been preparing qualities that couldn't have developed any other way. Like roots strengthening beneath rich soil long before the first harvest appears, your efforts have been building something far more lasting than immediate results. A dream you quietly placed aside may now begin to feel alive again, not because circumstances have magically changed, but because you've changed. Rather than asking whether you're willing to chase another dream, this card asks a gentler question. Are you willing to believe that the dream is still worthy of your care? Sometimes what we abandon isn't our purpose, but our confidence in carrying it forward. As your perspective shifts, what once seemed unrealistic may begin to reveal itself as something that simply required a different season and a wiser version of you. Then the Ace of Pentacles enters, offering a symbol of fresh beginnings grounded in reality. Unlike opportunities that disappear as quickly as they arrive, this card speaks of something you can build with your own hands over time. It may appear through a conversation, an invitation, a practical idea, or an unexpected chance to revisit something familiar with renewed confidence. What looks ordinary on the surface could carry the potential to reshape your future, provided you're willing to recognize its value. More importantly, this card encourages honesty with yourself, not the kind that criticizes your past decisions, but the kind that gently acknowledges what your heart has been trying to tell you for quite some time. You may realize you've been holding on to routines, expectations, or definitions of security that no longer reflect the person you're becoming. That realization isn't something to fear. It's often the beginning of living with greater authenticity. When these three energies come together, they don't suggest becoming someone entirely new. They point toward returning to the truest parts of yourself with greater wisdom, patience, and self-respect. The version of you that once dreamed freely wasn't mistaken. It simply hadn't yet gathered the experience needed to support those dreams with solid roots. Now, the foundation beneath you feels stronger because it's been shaped by everything you've lived through. In everyday life, this could take many forms. An old project may return with a clearer direction. A relationship could become more genuine because both people have grown. A practical opportunity that once seemed beyond reach may now fit naturally into your life. You might even discover that the path you resisted wasn't wrong, it simply wasn't ready until you were. There's no need to rush your response. Taurus moves best when each step feels intentional, and this season honors that rhythm. Pay attention to conversations that leave you feeling quietly inspired. Notice the places, memories, or ideas that seem to return without force. Your body often recognizes meaningful change before your mind fully understands it. Many of life's most important turning points arrive without dramatic announcements. They begin as subtle shifts in perspective, moments when familiar ground suddenly feels full of new possibilities. If you sense one of those moments approaching, allow yourself to pause instead of pushing ahead. Sometimes the clearest guidance isn't found by searching harder. It's found by listening closely enough to hear the quiet confidence that has been waiting within you all along. Taurus, as you move through the energies surrounding July 12, 2026, you may begin to notice three quiet developments taking shape. They may seem unrelated at first, yet each appears to grow from the same deeper process you've been living through over the past months. Rather than arriving as dramatic turning points, they unfold naturally, like seeds reaching the surface after a long season beneath the soil. Each one invites you to recognize that lasting change often begins long before it becomes visible. The first may come through a meaningful reconnection. Perhaps it's a conversation you never expected to have, a familiar name that suddenly appears again, or someone whose path once crossed yours before life carried you in different directions. Their return doesn't necessarily erase the past, nor should it. Instead, it may offer a new perspective, a practical opportunity, or the chance to rebuild trust from a place of greater maturity. Before assuming nothing has changed, allow yourself to consider that both of you may have grown in ways neither could have imagined before. Not long afterward, something else may quietly reawaken a goal, an idea or a vision you once placed aside because it seemed too distant or too difficult to pursue. This time, however, it feels different. What once existed only as hope begins to reveal practical steps, supportive people, and a clearer sense of direction. The dream hasn't returned because it was waiting for perfect circumstances. It has returned because you become the kind of person who can carry it with greater wisdom and patience. One of the most encouraging parts of this season is that you may discover you no longer have to build everything alone. Someone may recognize your strengths without needing to be convinced, appreciating qualities you've often underestimated in yourself. Their encouragement isn't about changing who you are. It's about helping you develop what has always been there, allowing your natural gifts to grow in an environment where they are genuinely valued. As this unfolds, you may notice another subtle shift. People begin responding differently to your presence, not because you become louder or more determined to prove yourself, but because you're speaking from a place of greater clarity. The need for constant validation starts to soften, replaced by a quiet confidence that naturally attracts opportunities, relationships, and experiences aligned with your values. There's a remarkable kind of influence that comes from simply being grounded in who you are. One of the greatest lessons this period may offer is that peace often carries more strength than constant striving. There are moments when life opens a door you never thought to knock on, not because you forced it open, but because you finally slowed down enough to recognize it was there all along. These opportunities don't ask for perfection. They ask for presence, honesty, and the willingness to respond instead of react. Take time to ask yourself what truly belongs in the life you're building now. Which parts of your identity still reflect your deepest values, and which habits or expectations have simply remained because they once felt safe. Growth isn't always about adding something new. Sometimes it's about giving yourself permission to reclaim parts of yourself that have been waiting patiently beneath layers of responsibility, routine, or self-doubt. The changes that emerge during this season may not resemble the dramatic transformations people often imagine. More often, they develop through a thoughtful decision, an honest conversation, or a small act of courage repeated consistently over time. These are the moments that gradually reshape a life from the inside outward, creating stability that lasts because it's rooted in genuine self-understanding rather than temporary excitement. If uncertainty still appears from time to time, don't mistake it for a sign that you're on the wrong path. Pause before rushing toward answers. Listen to the quiet sense of recognition that sometimes accompanies an unexpected opportunity or a familiar idea returning with fresh meaning. What feels significant may not be coincidence at all. It may simply be the moment when your own readiness finally meets the opportunities that have been patiently waiting for you. Let this become the season when you stop confusing stillness with standing still. There is wisdom in moving at a pace that allows your roots to deepen before reaching higher. Lasting strength doesn't come from forcing life forward. It grows when your choices, your values, and your timing begin to support one another naturally. When that harmony develops, progress often feels less like struggle and more like finally walking on ground that was quietly preparing for your next step all along. Taurus, the season unfolding around July 12, 2026, isn't asking you to become someone entirely different. Instead, it gently invites you to become more fully yourself. Lasting transformation rarely begins with one dramatic decision. More often, it starts with a quiet pause before reacting, a deeper breath before speaking, or the willingness to listen to your own inner wisdom before seeking answers everywhere else. Those seemingly ordinary moments have a remarkable way of shaping the direction of everything that follows. As these astrological influences continue to develop, what matters most isn't how much you accomplish in a single day, but the quality of attention you bring to your life. Your energy naturally influences the choices you make, the conversations you invite, and the opportunities you recognize. Rather than trying to force progress, this period encourages you to cultivate the inner conditions where growth can happen naturally. Just as healthy soil supports every seed planted within it, a steady inner world often becomes the foundation for lasting outer change. Begin with something beautifully simple. Set aside 10 quiet minutes each morning before the pace of the day begins to pull at your attention. Rest your hand over your heart, breathe slowly, and allow yourself to settle into the present moment. As you inhale, imagine drawing in fresh possibilities that have not yet fully revealed themselves. As you exhale, release the expectations, fears, or old stories that no longer reflect the person you're becoming. You might quietly remind yourself, I am creating space for steady growth and meaningful opportunities. The purpose isn't to convince yourself of something overnight. It's to create an inner atmosphere where confidence can gradually take root. Movement also becomes an important part of this process, especially the kind that reconnects you with your body instead of pushing it beyond its limits. A peaceful walk beneath morning light, gentle stretching, tending a garden, or simply spending time outdoors can restore a sense of balance that busy schedules often diminish. Taurus often reconnects with clarity through the senses, and the simple act of feeling fresh air, warm sunlight, or the earth beneath your feet can become its own quiet form of reflection. The way you care for your body deserves the same thoughtful attention. Choosing nourishing meals prepared with intention, enjoying fresh herbs, leafy greens, seasonal fruits, wholesome grains, healthy oils, walnuts, or flax seeds can become small daily reminders that growth begins through consistent care rather than dramatic effort. These practices don't carry magical guarantees. Instead, they symbolize your willingness to support yourself from the inside out, strengthening both body and mind through mindful choices. Even the colors surrounding you can serve as gentle reminders of the qualities you're cultivating during this chapter. Soft shades of sage green, olive, forest green, cream, copper, or warm gold echo themes of stability, renewal, and quiet abundance. Rather than viewing them as mystical prescriptions, think of them as visual anchors that reflect the atmosphere you're intentionally creating, one rooted in patience, warmth, and lasting growth. Numbers, too, can become meaningful symbols when approached with reflection instead of certainty. During this period, you may find yourself noticing 12, marking the rhythm of this important point in the year, or 4, a number often associated with building strong foundations. If these numbers catch your attention, let them serve as simple reminders to return to your intentions rather than as promises about the future. Their value lies in the awareness they inspire, not in prediction. It's natural to look for reassurance through signs, patterns, or perfectly timed moments. Yet many of life's most meaningful shifts begin with something quieter, a change in perspective, a renewed commitment, or the decision to approach familiar circumstances with greater openness than before. You don't need to see every step that lies ahead. You only need enough trust to take the next one with honesty and patience. If you've been carrying responsibilities without allowing yourself time to receive support, let this season become an invitation to restore that balance. Make room not only for achievement, but also for rest. Welcome not only progress, but also clarity. Offer yourself the same steadiness and compassion that you so often extend to others. Lasting confidence grows when you consistently treat yourself as someone worthy of your own care. Even now, unseen changes may already be taking shape beneath the surface of your life. Like roots quietly spreading before new branches appear, much of what matters most develops long before visible results emerge. Keep moving at a pace that feels true to you. Keep breathing deeply. Keep trusting the quiet work that's happening within. The most meaningful transformations rarely announce themselves with dramatic moments. More often, they begin with a subtle shift in the way you see yourself, the way you respond to uncertainty, or the way you choose to nurture what truly matters. Taurus, your greatest strength has never been how quickly you move. It's your ability to build something lasting with patience, intention, and care. And sometimes the most remarkable chapters begin the moment you stop gripping the future so tightly and allow life to meet you where you've already prepared the ground. That reminds me of a story I'd like to share with you, not as proof that every journey unfolds the same way, but as a reflection of what can happen when steady trust gradually replaces the need to control every outcome. Let me share a story that captures the spirit of this season. It isn't meant to predict your future, but to reflect what can become possible when inner readiness finally meets the right moment. The woman in this story was a Taurus who had spent years building a life she genuinely loved. She had created a respected business through patience and dedication, built a home that reflected her values, and surrounded herself with relationships she believed would stand the test of time. Then, little by little, the ground beneath her began to shift. Changes in the economy affected her work, projects disappeared, and the financial security she had worked so hard to create became uncertain. A relationship she trusted slowly faded, leaving behind more questions than answers. What unsettled her most wasn't simply what she had lost, it was the feeling that the future she had carefully planned no longer looked familiar. Like many Taurus souls, she tried to solve every problem through determination alone, believing that working harder would restore what had slipped away. Instead, she found herself exhausted, disconnected, and wondering whether she had been carrying responsibilities that no longer belonged to her. Then, around the middle of July, something unexpected happened. On the morning of July 12, she opened her inbox and found a message from someone she hadn't spoken with in years. It wasn't an apology or a dramatic confession. It was a simple invitation from someone who had once been a professional rival. The message suggested working together on a project that would combine their strengths instead of placing them in competition. Her first instinct was hesitation. She questioned the timing, wondered about hidden motives, and considered declining before the conversation had even begun. Yet beneath those familiar doubts was a quieter feeling she couldn't ignore. She realized she no longer wanted to build her future by carrying everything on her own. Rather than responding from fear, she chose curiosity. She accepted the invitation, not because she knew exactly where it would lead, but because it felt more honest than holding on to old assumptions. That single decision didn't change her life overnight, but it changed its direction. Over the following months, the partnership developed into something neither of them could have created alone. Her work became more fulfilling, her finances gradually stabilized, and the constant pressure she had been carrying began to ease. Even more importantly, she rediscovered confidence that wasn't based solely on achievement. She reconnected with family, rebuilt trust in herself, and found relationships that felt calmer, healthier, and far more genuine than those she had been trying so hard to preserve. Later, while reflecting on that period, she wrote something that stayed with everyone who read it. She said, "The turning point wasn't the opportunity itself. It was realizing I no longer had to control every outcome before allowing something good to happen. Once I stopped fighting every unknown, I could finally recognize the path that had been quietly waiting for me." Her words remind us that meaningful change often begins long before we recognize it. Sometimes it arrives through an unexpected email, a thoughtful conversation, or a gentle invitation that seems ordinary until we look back and see how much it changed. Whether you describe that guiding force as intuition, divine timing, faith, or simply life's natural rhythm, the underlying experience is remarkably similar. There are moments when growth asks us not to tighten our grip, but to loosen it just enough for new possibilities to enter. If this season has left you uncertain, don't feel pressure to solve everything immediately. Allow room for possibilities that may not resemble your original plans, but still lead you toward a life that feels more authentic. Very often, the opportunities that shape us don't appear with dramatic certainty. They begin quietly, asking only for enough openness to consider a different path. One unexpected conversation, one practical opportunity, One sincere decision to say yes where fear once would have answered no. Those small moments have a way of changing much more than we realize. As you move through the week surrounding July 12, 2026, I'd encourage you to turn your attention inward before searching for signs everywhere else. The wisdom you'd be looking for may already be present beneath the noise of daily life. Every thoughtful choice you make, every boundary you honor, every decision rooted in your values becomes another stone in the foundation you're building. Lasting transformation is rarely created by one extraordinary event. More often, it's built through ordinary moments approached with extraordinary intention. You don't have to know exactly how the next chapter will unfold. You simply need to remain willing to meet each day with honesty, patience, and self-respect. Can you continue beginning your mornings with stillness? Can you give voice to a dream you've quietly protected for years? Can you allow trusted people back into your life without expecting them or yourself to be exactly who they once were? Those are the kinds of questions that often open new possibilities. Walk forward at your own pace. Choose steadiness over urgency and trust over unnecessary fear. Let this season be remembered not because everything happened quickly, but because you became more deeply rooted in the life that truly reflects who you are. The greatest opportunities rarely ask you to become someone else. They invite you to become more fully yourself. So let me leave you with a few questions. What part of your life feels ready for a stronger foundation? Which truth have you quietly known but postponed acting upon? And what would change if you trusted your own timing just a little more? If this message speaks to where you are today, leave 12 in the comments as your reminder to trust the season you're building, one intentional step at a time. And if these reflections brought a memory, an insight, or a new perspective to mind, I'd love to hear about it. Your experience may encourage someone else who is walking through a similar season of growth. Thank you for spending this time here. I hope this reflection reminds you that meaningful progress isn't measured by how quickly life changes, but by how steadily you continue building a future that reflects your values. This chapter isn't an ending. It's another step along a path you've been preparing for far longer than you may have realized, and the next part of that journey will be shaped by the quiet confidence you choose to carry forward.